So I'm Paige, and this is DJ. She's my guest co-host this week, and I'm super excited about it.
Super stoked to be here.
Well, welcome to The Dark and Decrepit. This is our first episode, so I want to pretense with letting everyone know. I know that in most true crime podcasts, people give like trigger warnings, let them know when something like grody is going to come up, but I'm not going to do that because this is The Dark and Decrepit, so you came here for it, and if you're not here for it, you should leave. But please don't leave.
The name is your trigger warning, like it's dark and decrepit.
Yeah,
That's
your
your
trigger warning
warning.
is the title. You came here knowing what was happening. Okay. This week, we've got Jeffrey Dahmer, and I'm super excited about it. He's a good one. So, Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born May 21st, 1960 in Milwaukee. His mom was Joyce Dahmer. His dad was Lionel Dahmer. He also had a brother. His name was David Dahmer. And Jeffrey actually got to name him himself, which is pretty cool. My parents never let me name any of my siblings, and I've got, like, a lot.
I got to name a dog once.
Yeah? What'd you name it?
Puff.
Puff?
Yeah.
That's why your parents didn't let you pick kids' names.
He's a golden retriever.
Puff.
It's fluffy.
That's cute. He was puffy. That's what he was.
Yeah.
So, you would think that this would have made Jeffrey and David, like, very close. He named him David. And you would have thought that this would have made them very close to each other. Because, like, if I got to name one of my siblings, I think it would have been really close to them. I didn't get to name any of my siblings, and I still wanted to be close to them when I was younger. And this did not happen that way. Jeffrey resented his little brother. He felt like he took attention away from him that he wanted from his parents. Well, his parents didn't really pay a lot of attention to him anyway. His mother suffered from depression from the time Jeffrey was in first grade, so pretty young. She spent a lot of time in bed, which a lot of depressed people do.
Yeah.
It's hard. So she didn't really take care of the kids almost at all. So it really left it up to their father, and he didn't have time for it either because he was pursuing a chemistry degree.
That's hard.
So he was extremely absent as well.
Yeah.
Whenever his dad was home, his mom needed constant attention. So, still no time for the kids, even when he was home for them. So, that was probably really loud, I'm sorry. Let's talk about Jeffrey as a child and a young teen before he became this infamous serial killer that we all know about.
Yeah, background's important.
Yes. So, Jeffrey, this is kind of going to be all, it kind of bounces around. There's like a lot of information here, but like this is just what his childhood was. So, there's a lot of little stories of this. So, Jeffrey was described as a happy kid until about age 4.
Oh.
So, it's not like some serial killers you hear that like they were just like these angry kids all the time, but Jeffrey was like a pretty happy kid for the most part. Until he had a surgery to fix a double hernia. You're like science-y, DJ.
Yeah.
Like, how does a kid get a double hernia?
I assume it's something that they're, like, born with, like, something didn't develop right as they were in the womb. But I don't know. We could fact-check that, and I will get back to you, but I don't really know.
So, I dated this guy. His dad got a hernia, and he had... Let me rephrase that. I dated a guy whose dad did not dated a guy's dad. I dated a guy whose dad had a hernia. I don't date dads, okay? I dated this guy, and his dad got a hernia, and he had to get surgery, and I think it was from lifting.
Yeah, you can get, like, as an adult, I know if you, like, lift wrong, your stuff can...
So I don't understand how, like, a child's stomach, like, flips.
I know, okay, so I had a teacher whose daughter had intestinal issues. Like, when you're developing in the womb, your intestines rotate 270 degrees, and then they go in you.
Huh.
So I don't know if, like, as a child, because you're not doing, like, heavy lifting as a child, maybe there was something developmentally wrong on the inside, and as he was growing, it developed a hernia. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, that's strange. But I was wondering about that, and I was like, DJ knows science. Maybe she'll know this.
I don't know baby science.
Okay, fair enough. I should know that science. I went to school for early childhood, but like we didn't learn about like babies getting hernias.
That's
so
like, I don't think
it doesn't seem like a thing you should have to learn. So anyway, after this, that's when he began to change, right? So he wasn't as happy. He was kind of starting to act weird, as people pointed out. So his interest in dead animals started at an early age.
Oof.
Yeah. And he would collect insects, he would put them in jars, and that's not weird. Like, people
No.
talk about this. He, like, collected insects. He was really interested in, like, bones and different animals and their structures and their anatomy. And that in itself is not weird.
No, I did that.
That's, like, his dad was going to school for a chemistry degree. And he was curious about things that have to do with that. I don't think that's weird at all. People make it out to be, like, super weird. But it does get weird pretty quick.
Oh, no.
So that in itself is fine. But, he started collecting roadkill pretty soon after that.
That's
That's
weird. That's definitely over that borderline.
So he would take roadkill he found off the road, and he would bring it to his shed in the backyard. He would dismember the animals.
Okay.
DJ is here for it, but she also like doesn't like this stuff, so she's the humor that you need because I'm not giving you the trigger warnings you probably.
Because I know nothing about Jeffrey at all. Like, this is.
That's why it's so great that
You're
here.
teaching. I'm learning as we're all learning together.
So he starts collecting this roadkill. He takes it to his shed. He chops off their heads. He skins them of all their fur. He's like looking at their bones and their body. And then he finds a dead dog one day on the side of the road. And he does the same thing. He cuts the head off, takes all the fur off. But then he takes the dog's skull and he puts it through a stake and puts it in the backyard.
Oh no.
You probably named it Puff.
Probably. like was do you know if it was like a cleaned skull or was it like?
Yeah, he cleaned it best he could. So he let's see. It says like I can't remember. No, I don't think he cleaned it the best he could. But it wasn't like perfectly clean because at this point he didn't know how to do that stuff yet.
Right.
But he was interested in that, and that's probably what provoked him to be more interested in that.
My thought process was like he cut off the dog's head and with the ears and the fur and the brain still in it, just.
Oh no, he tried to clean it out best he could.
Okay, I mean, out of the two evils, I guess that's the lesser at this point, but like that's still it's still weird.
You're gonna love this.
Oh, good.
So one time, Dahmer gave his grade school teacher a tadpole that he had found.
Okay.
Right? Which is really adorable. And also I felt like it was him trying to connect with like a woman figure because his mom wasn't really in his life.
Yeah, so he's kind of searching for like a mom.
He's searching for like a mom figure. Well, the teacher ended up giving the tadpole to another student for some reason.
Rude.
I do think that's rude. I'm not saying that this person deserved this because they didn't, this child. But I can understand why Jeffrey was like triggered by that, like in his own head, because he's trying to find this like mother figure, and he like cared about this teacher obviously, and then she was like, "Here, other kid, you can have the tadpole that Jeffrey gave me because I don't give a shit about it apparently."
Yeah, like if you're trying to express like love, emotion, here's a gift, and like let's just say you gave a gift to your significant other, and that significant other gave it to somebody else. Rude. Like obviously, like a mother figure and a significant other are pretty different for most people.
But like same,
but the concept
same
of
difference.
gift giving to show emotion.
Exactly. So she gave it to another student. Dahmer visited the student's house, and guess what he did?
I'm sure he like stabbed something through them.
Oh no, he didn't hurt this child.
Oh, okay, I thought he was gonna
He
stab
just set the tank on fire. He filled it with gasoline and just set it on fire. That's all. That's it.
That's reasonable.
It's a perfectly normal reaction.
It's a pretty normal reaction for how old is he now? Ish.
He's in grade school, so that could be anywhere between like 3rd and 5th grade, I think.
Yeah, so he's like less than 12. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Not what I was doing when I was 10.
Yeah, because like most 12-year-olds, like when you get in a fire, you're like 12, because you're like that preteen teenager of like, hey, blowing up G.I. Joes is so cool. No, he's like,
So another time, Jeffrey's at dinner and with his father, and he started to ask him about bones.
Okay.
Yeah, and his father's like super down with this, right? Because he's like, yeah, my kid's like interested in what I'm doing. That's awesome. He never talks to me. He's weird. So
we're bonding.
We're bonding over bones. So he asked him what would happen if they were put in a bleach solution.
Okay.
And if they would like break down. And he showed Jeffrey how to bleach bones without them breaking down.
Okay.
Because he knew how to do all that stuff, obviously.
Okay.
So, like I said, Jeffrey's father like simply thought that he had this scientific curiosity going on, and he was super happy to engage with him at this point. But that's all that happened there. He like taught him about how to bleach them and not have them degrade and like break down, and Jeffrey was like, "Cool, thanks. I'm gonna go murder people."
I think as a parent, kids are all weird. So I'm thinking, like, I was a nerdy little kid collecting insects and putting them in bugs. We liked fireflies. We put them in jars.
Yeah, I always collected fireflies as a kid. It was like one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
That's such a sweet thing. Don't bring that memory back to me.
So I don't, yeah, I know, right? So I don't know, like, as a parent, that, like, how do you bleach bones? I don't know if your kid's weird, I don't know if that would be seen as, like, a weird
No, I mean, I think that, like,
either.
him being a chemist made it not weird for him.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
that I don't feel like would be, like, it's weird, but I don't think it's, like, a sign that
Yeah.
he's messed
You
up.
definitely don't think he's gonna go murder people.
Right, like, that's just, like, a weird kid question. And he's, like, a boy, and boys are, they like bones.
Yeah,
and
boys are weird.
bugs.
You heard it here.
Boys are shit.
So anyway, during puberty, because now puberty's starting, right? He's not a little kid setting tadpoles on fire anymore. I'm sorry, I'm too much. This podcast is gonna fail miserably.
No, it's not
I'm
gonna
a
be great.
So during puberty, Dahmer found out that he was gay. And he didn't tell his parents because, you know, back then they were like, gay is not the way. Jesus. So he had a sexual relationship with a boy, apparently.
Okay.
And I couldn't really find anything on that other than the fact that he did have a sexual relationship with a boy. So I don't know anything further on that. But Dahmer claimed that this is when he began fantasizing about controlling a submissive male, which makes sense, his first relationship. So he started fantasizing about murdering men and having sex with their corpse from an early adolescence. Not normal. He confessed that around age 13, he became obsessed with the idea of murdering a jogger that was in his hometown. So he actually wanted to act on these thoughts. So one day he just like hid in some bushes and he would he'd watch the jogger. And he decided one day he was actually gonna hit him over the head with a baseball bat and then kill him. So he sat in the bushes with this baseball bat and he didn't end up doing anything because the jogger just didn't go jogging that day. So Dahmer had every intention of killing his first victim at this point, and he's 13. And he just didn't do it because the jogger just didn't come by that day.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're in high school now, right? In high school, Jeffrey would bring alcohol to school, and he very frequently became intoxicated at school, and he struggled with alcohol abuse and mental illness.
That's really young.
I think that's crazy. Like, so Harper was telling me before that people in her school used to do that. They used to bring vodka and water bottles.
Mm. Yeah, we sometimes had that. Like, we had Skittles in the bottom of a water bottle, and we would tell the teachers, it's just water, because it is water, it's just Skittles.
Yeah.
And that way it made it kind of like a sweet, and it was like purple or red or like brown if you mix all the colors.
Yeah.
So then they would take vodka and mix it with Skittles and be like, it's just water. And
Oh, wow.
And I was able to access alcohol pretty early, but I never brought it to school.
Yeah, that's crazy to me that people did that. Like,
Yeah, that's a little. Yeah, that's kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, to no surprise, Jeffrey's parents fought all the time, and eventually it led to a pretty nasty divorce, which, in my opinion, played a big role. Not their divorce per se. I'm not like saying that because they got divorced he killed people, but it opened up a lot of opportunity for him to kill at an earlier age.
Yeah, because if they were preoccupied fighting and.
Yeah, well, there's a big part. We're going to get to it right now, but his house was just left to himself. His parents were divorced. So he literally had this huge house. His mom had David. His dad was away all the time. So he just had this house for an entire summer to himself.
Oh, yeah, so he was definitely.
Completely alone. He had every opportunity to do whatever he wanted.
Wow.
So his first killing, Dahmer was only 18, and his first victim was also only 18.
Okay.
So Dahmer graduated high school, and now it's June 18th. 1978, just a few weeks after he graduated, 3 weeks to be exact. Stephen Hicks, this is his first victim.
Okay.
He's only 18 as well, graduated from the same high school, Revere High School in Bath Township, Ohio.
So he knew this guy?
I don't know. I don't know how big the schools were. I know that sometimes
Okay.
people have like huge schools and they don't know people. So
That's
to my
true.
knowledge, he didn't know Stephen, but he did graduate from the same high school as him.
Okay, that's still interesting, but you're right.
I went to a really small school with like 52 in my graduating class, and everyone knew everyone. But then I know people who went to a school with like 300 kids in their graduating class, and I can't even process that.
Yeah,
I don't even know what that's like.
I didn't even know. I knew most of my graduating class, but like if I never had a class with some kids, I didn't know them.
I knew every single person in my graduating class. Like I talked to every single one of them. Like spent time around every single one of them. So pretty weird for me to think about that. But anyway, Stephen was hitchhiking after attending a rock concert at the Chippewa Lake Park, Jeffrey was driving, and he just saw him walking, and he picked him up. And he gave him exactly what he was looking for. So he offered him drugs and alcohol.
Because rock concert.
Yeah, and Stephen Hicks is like, yes. Because, right, he's excited. He just got done with a rock concert. He's totally down for that. Words are hard. He's totally down for that. So, at this time, Jeffrey was still living in his family home, like we said, but his parents were going through their divorce at this time, so he had the house completely to himself. So, for Dahmer, this was very much about a sexual experience. Like, he wanted to be involved with someone, like, sexually at this point. And he was gay, and he didn't tell anyone. So, he told people that what attracted him to Stephen initially was that he was bare-chested. So he wasn't wearing a shirt. Yeah, so he looked at this man, and he was like,
ooh, gotta have that.
Gotta have that. Gotta have me some Stephen Hicks. That's rude. I'm sorry.
No. Well, I mean, like, it's kind of like back in the day, like, ankles were promiscuous and provocative. Like, shake that ankle. Ooh.
I mean, that's like, so, like, all men can show off, like, without being, like, completely undressed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, fair enough for him being attracted to that.
And if you saw, like, a male model, that's what a male model would kind of be doing.
Presenting, like, their chest. Yeah, I think it's totally fair. It's not fair when
it's
he goes to him, but it's fair he was attracted to him for it. So, anyway, Stephen was not into this sexually. He was totally just interested. Why am I so bad at talking? He was totally just interested in the free booze. So, Dahmer's intentions were to get some alcohol into Stephen and then make sexual advances on him, but it did not go as he planned. So Stephen was very straight, and once he had a little bit to drink, he started telling Dahmer about how straight he was and how much he liked girls, and Dahmer was upset by this. He was, like, crushed that this wasn't working out. Yeah. So serial killers are really smart. We can't deny that, most of them.
Yeah.
But Dahmer knew right then that if he tried to make any sexual advances, that he'd be turned down. And even though serial killers are really smart, their brains don't work the same as ours.
Yeah.
They're very different, unless you are a serial killer, which I am assuming you are, unless you prove me wrong. So, Dahmer couldn't risk the rejection at this point. So hours went by, and Stephen started to slouch in his chair, and he's getting tired, and he's had enough free beer, and I'm sure in his mind, a good conversation. And quite honestly, he probably thought that he had just struck out and made a new friend. Like, this guy just invited him over to do drugs and to drink, and he just got him this rock concert, and he's like, he has his house all to himself, and he's probably thinking that, like, this is going to work out pretty good. They're going to be friends, and Dahmer did not see it like that. So he was pretty upset that he was about to leave, right? Because he doesn't want him to go. He's having a good time. So he doesn't think, oh, I could be friends with this person. He's like, I don't want this person to leave. I wanted what I wanted. So, moral of the story, he didn't want Stephen to leave, and he was going to make sure that he didn't. So, while Stephen was relaxing in his chair, and in his mind getting ready to head out, Dahmer comes up behind him with a 10-pound dumbbell, hits him over the head twice, and knocks him unconscious.
Okay.
He then strangled him with the bar of the dumbbell, and then fulfilled his sexual fantasies that he had. In his signed confession, Jeffrey told police that after he dismembered Stephen, he hid him in a drain pipe. And then, but later they found parts of skeletal remains scattered around the backyard that were Stephen Hicks. But in my head, he could have very well, I don't think that he lied. He could have put him in a drain pipe, and then they didn't find him for years. He didn't kill again for another 9 years, but they didn't find Stephen Hicks for, like, another, like, 10 to 13? Something like that. So, like, that's a long time. If he was in a drain pipe, he could have very well washed out and had fragments, like, in the yard, if it was by his backyard.
Right.
So, I don't think he lied about that. People, like, speculate about that. I think that he's just saying exactly how he disposed of it, and then it ended up washing out.
What if he dismembered him? There's more than one piece.
Exactly. So it just spread out.
Yeah.
It's a drain pipe. It's going to, like, flow into other areas.
Right. It's like your water that we all drink
has Stephen in it. Great.
Cool.
So he didn't kill again for another 9 years. So what did he do in between these killings, DJ?
I don't know, maybe pursue a healthy relationship and go to school and fulfill his, like, career goals?
Absolutely not.
Oh, wow! I'm
So,
surprised.
Dahmer attended college at Ohio State University, but this time his alcoholism got the best of him,
Oh, no.
and he dropped out after just one semester.
Oh.
So his father forced him to enlist in the Army, where he served as a combat medic in Germany from 1979 to 1981. But again, the alcoholism never stopped, and he was discharged that following spring and moved back to Ohio. His drinking continued to cause him problems, so his father was like, "You're gonna go live with your grandma."
Okay.
And so he moved to West Allis, Wisconsin. Starting in 1985, he started frequenting gay bathhouses. There he would drug men and rape them while they were unconscious. He was arrested twice for indecent exposure in 1982 and 1986, but he only got probation, and he wasn't even charged with the rapes.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I will point out that it is funny that he went into the Army as a medic to save lives.
And then he took many of them.
And he's, like, also murdering people. And to be a medic, I assume you have to kind of have some kind of anatomy understanding of people.
And I think that he did, because of, like, everything with his dad. And he went to Ohio State University for a while. So, I mean, he learned about stuff, he just didn't finish it.
Yeah, but the Army.
Because
His education in the Army taught him how to
be oh, God. That was so loud, I'm so sorry.
I'm sure that's not the Army's intentions, but what
But
he
that's
learned
what
from the
happened.
Army helped him understand anatomy better.
So, well, he targeted Stevens.
Is it another
Just
Steven?
another Steven.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What a common name.
I know. I work with a Steve.
Yeah, we know a Steve.
Sorry. Don't go near any Jeffries. Oh, we work with a Jeffrey!
We have two Jeffs.
Oh, God. I didn't mean that.
And one
Just
of them-
Steven, avoid Jeffrey. No, I don't know what I'm saying. Brogan, cut this out. Cut that. Okay, this is a train wreck. I love all of you, and I'm sorry.
This is going good. You're having a good time.
I am. I'm having a fun time. I got one of these raspberries. Yum, yum, yum.
I've been eating cheese while you, like,
Crunchy
Teaching.
cheese with the Havarti.
yeah, I did.
People are gonna hate this. It's okay. So anyway, September of 1987. We're traveling backwards.
Okay.
No, we're not. September of 1987. Stephen Tuomi. Dahmer picked him up from a bar and took him back to a hotel room. And he claims he woke up the next morning, Dahmer, and Tuomi's beaten dead body was next to him, and he had no memory of actually murdering Tuomi, which implies that he either blacked out or lied. He then placed his body in a suitcase, took it to his grandmother's basement, and a week later he dismembered it and placed it in the trash, except for the head, which he kept for another week before boiling it in industrial detergent with bleach,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually pulverizing the skull. So at this point he's not keeping anything.
Yeah.
He also, so a lot of people think he lied about this, and that he didn't black out, but let me just say, he had a huge drinking problem, so it's not unlikely that he did black out. He obviously did this, and he wasn't denying that he did it, but I also want to point out that when he got caught, he didn't want to hide what he was doing. He was done. He was finally, like, at peace with everything. He was done murdering. He couldn't do it anymore. That's the only thing he cared about at this point. So he had no reason to lie about any of this.
Yeah, I've heard, like, a lot of serial killer. I'm not a very serial killer expert per se, but the ones that I do know about, they, once they get caught and they're going through their records and stuff, they just kind of tell everything because
They have no reason not to. So
they're already in jail. They're already in it.
Exactly.
Set up for failure.
And they're done doing what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So after this, his killings occurred sporadically. His next victim was 1987, James Doxeter. He was 14. He killed a lot of young boys. It's really sad.
Okay,
So he
yeah.
brought Doxeter to the basement of his grandmother's house after promising $50 in exchange for posing for news photos. He then drugged him, strangled him, and disposed of his body in a similar fashion of Tuomi's. 1988, Richard Guerrero, 25, so he's getting older at this point. He goes back and forth. I think it was all opportunity because Dahmer didn't stick to a specific race or a specific age range. It was just about gender. He killed males, gay males. He did kill one straight guy, other than Stephen Hicks, so 2 straight guys. So he offered Guerrero $50 again to come back to his grandmother's house and spend the night with him.
Oh.
He drugged Guerrero with sleeping pills, strangled him, performed sexual acts on his corpse, and then he dismembered the body within 24 hours. So hiding his killings and dismemberments was becoming increasingly difficult. Okay, so his grandmother became annoyed with him bringing men to her house late at night, and the basement was smelling quite unwell at this point.
I'm sure.
So she eventually told him to move out. He got a one-bedroom apartment, and that's when things really took off. Dahmer was arrested and charged with second-degree sexual assault for enticing a child for immoral purposes after luring a 13-year-old Kyson, I can never get this name, Synthesphone? How do you think you say that? So we're just going to call him Kyson.
Yeah, his name's Kyson.
So 13-year-old Kyson back to his apartment where he drugged him, molested him, and he intended to make him his next victim, but he escaped and went to the police.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So Dahmer spent a week in jail before being released on bail. 1 week for drugging and molesting a 13-year-old boy.
And kidnapping. He had to take him.
Yeah, that's true. So March 1989, Anthony Sears, 24. Dahmer begins to keep trophies at this point.
Oh, no.
They met at a bar. Dahmer feared that his apartment was being watched at this point by the police because he had just been arrested for that 13-year-old boy. So he brought Sears to his grandmother's basement and drugged and strangled him. Why did he hate his grandmother? She seemed like such a sweet lady. And Dahmer was like, I'm going to kill people in your basement and chop them up, and it's going to smell bad. And I'm not sorry.
Maybe he was like, I got this really slick setup, man. I'm like, this is my space.
He just had to take advantage of it.
He put up like special wallpaper and border paper to match his aesthetic. And he just that's his theme room.
Yeah, well, Dahmer's aesthetic was blood on his walls, just so you know.
Oh, well, that's fitting. I feel like that's an appropriate thing.
So they met at a bar, and Dahmer feared his apartment was being watched.
Right.
So he took him to his grandmother's basement, blah, blah, blah. He stored and preserved Sears' head and genitals.
Interesting combo.
Yes, which he kept in a wooden box for a little bit of time, and he stored the box in his work locker at the chocolate factory.
Hygienic.
I'm glad I don't like chocolate. So May 1989, Dahmer sentenced to 12 months in jail with work release. And he was sentenced to 12 months in jail and 5 years probation for second-degree sexual assault. And Dahmer was granted to do this work release in order to keep his job at the Ambroso Chocolate Factory.
Oh, no.
Yes, while also being required to register as a sex offender.
Finally.
Yeah, I know. After all this time, I mean, he did so much stuff.
Like, how many times, I know that this is just a hypothetical question, how many times has he been caught with, like, sexual...
Too many.
Yeah, he's already been caught.
Multiple at this point, yeah. So he was paroled from jail 2 months early, mind you. He didn't even serve his full sentence. So
and he
Dahmer...
had to go out and go to work.
Yeah, and exactly. So I have, like, heard in a lot of other areas, too, I couldn't find anything to, like, confirm this, but, like, he would go to work, and then he would, like, leave work and go to his apartment and stuff, and then just go back to jail. Like, one night, he just stayed the night at his apartment, and he was like, well, is nobody keeping track of this man?
Yeah, like...
That's insane to me. I just don't get that.
I mean, they need some chaperones or something.
So he ended up renting a new apartment at 924 North 25th Street in Milwaukee. And this was shortly after his release. So he kills again, May 1990, just months after being released from jail. He killed Raymond Smith, 32 years old. He was a prostitute that Dahmer had offered $50 for sex. He took Smith back to his apartment, drugged him, and strangled him with his hands before taking Polaroid pictures of his corpse in suggestive poses. He dismembered his body in the bathroom. Dahmer boiled the remains, dissolved them in a container of acid, except for Smith's skull, which he kept in a cabinet alongside Sears' skull. And neighbors started to complain that there was this emanating smell from his apartment. And Dahmer was like, my refrigerator's broken.
Oh.
DJ, do you think if you came to my house and it smelled like a dead body and I was like, my refrigerator's broken, you would just be like, cool, girl?
No.
I think you'd be like, bitch, throw out that nasty-ass chicken that's rotting in your fridge.
Yeah, like...
Because that's the only thing you could assume.
And then I would assume, like, with your own personal dietary choices and restrictions, like, what do you have that smells like that?
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. But his neighbors were like, Cool, man. Sounds good.
Oh, they were probably also on drugs or something.
Yeah, I think they also might have been killing people. So
Just
anyway.
smoke more weed to cover up the dead body smells.
June 1990, Edward Smith, 27. Dahmer attempted to retain this man's body by keeping him in a freezer for several months.
Months.
Yes. The frozen corpse eventually got all gross. And freezer burnt, messed up. And Dahmer was telling authorities when he got caught that this like really upset him because he wanted to keep his body, and it got ruined in the freezer, and he was upset about it.
Yeah, I mean, like,
and they probably felt really bad for him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So sorry, Will. Dahmer. You couldn't keep your old corpse, you freaking weirdo.
Because when you freeze water molecules, they expand and they break the cell
Yeah, he
walls.
didn't like that.
And so when you dethaw it, like, that's why they say you can't, like, freeze things more than once, or when you freeze certain fruits and stuff, they're just mushy because they broke all their cell walls. And
I like when you talk.
Oh, yeah? Because you get to snack.
Sorry.
But yeah, so, I mean, why wouldn't it be kind of freezer burnt after a while?
Yeah. So
just try canning instead. Canning would make it last a long time.
I don't think he was into that kind of thing.
Not a homemaker.
So September 1990, Ernest Miller, 22. This is what I'm saying. His victims are all over the place.
Yeah, they do. As long they're all males, but their ages are all.
So this one was different. He had his throat slashed.
Oh, that is different.
Which is not like his MO. But Dahmer took him to his apartment with the promise of money. Jeffrey tried to use his usual method of sleeping pills, but he didn't use enough this time. So this forced Dahmer to change his method of killing. Miller started to wake up, and Dahmer slit his throat real quick. And he kept parts of Miller's body to eat this time. So this is the first time he's keeping body parts to start eating.
Yeah, that's strange.
Plot twist. Maybe you didn't know this, but Jeffrey Dahmer was a cannibal.
I didn't, because I don't know anything about this.
But now you do.
I'm glad we brought snacks for this conversation.
Me too, and they're red.
And they are red.
So good.
Okay.
So he slit his throat, kept body parts to eat, and this is something that he started to increasingly start to do. But this time, he painted and displayed Miller's head in his apartment.
I guess this is now his own space. Like it's
not but here's my thing. He kills his next victim like fairly soon. What did he do with the head?
Oh.
Because 3 weeks later, he kills his next victim. So, like, you're telling me David Thomas over here didn't walk in and be like, what the f*** is that?
Is that a new latex paint on your wall?
Yeah.
That's a weird thing.
Nice head, man.
Nice.
Looks really real, and it smells real, too. So 3 weeks later, 22-year-old David Thomas, Dahmer later said that he realized during their encounter that he wasn't even attracted to this guy. But he still drugged him, and he killed him, and then he disposed of his body, and he chose not to keep any of his body parts because, again, he wasn't attracted to him. Yeah.
That's logical.
Yeah, very logical.
I only keep the pretty ones as my trophy.
Well, so here was the thing, is Dahmer was allegedly very connected to his victims. So the reason he gave for doing all of this was that he wanted to feel close to them. So it makes sense that he wouldn't keep somebody that he wasn't attracted to because he wouldn't want them to be a part of him.
Yeah, I guess with that mindset, it would make sense for him to be like...
I'm not saying it is logical because obviously none of this is logical. He's murdering people. But it makes sense in his head that he's not going to keep this person. He's definitely not going to eat this person because he doesn't want them to be a part of him.
What a concept.
Yeah, pretty wild. I'm sorry, my thing got messed up, so technical difficulties on my first episode. What a surprise.
That's okay.
Alright, so February 1991, a 10th victim is murdered. Wow. This is 17-year-old Curtis Straughter. He picked him up from a bus stop, offered him money in exchange for nude photos. He then drugged him, strangled him, took photos of him, dismembered, and kept body parts for cannibalism and for trophies. Jeffrey later claimed that, again, cannibalism was a compulsion for him, and he just wanted the victims to be a part of him. April 1991. This is probably one of the most talked about victims and the most well-known from Jeffrey Dahmer. So this is Earl Lindsay. He was 19, and he attempted to put him in a zombie-like state. So Dahmer drilled a hole in his skull, and he poured hydrochloric acid into it.
Oh.
He believed that this would put him into a zombie-like state, but Lindsay regained consciousness. Yes, so he drilled a hole in his head, poured hydrochloric acid in there. Lindsay regained consciousness. Dahmer drugged him more, and then he strangled him, skinned him with the intention of keeping his skin for who knows what, probably eating.
Probably wearing.
And then, I don't think we have ourselves a Silence of the Lambs over here. And then May 1991, Anthony Hughes, 31, Dahmer's next victim. He was already dead, but it's still intact. He had killed him, but he was still intact on the floor. And he lured another victim, 14-year-old Conorak, this weird last name again, Synthesiphone. You remember that last name?
Yeah.
Yeah, wait for it. I'm gonna give you a little twist here. So Conorak, this is not the same kid.
Okay.
It's a different kid, because the one before was Kyson.
Mm-hmm.
So Kyson, now Conorak, with the same last name, he photographed and drugged Conorak, and then Dahmer tried the zombie thing again. So he drilled a hole in his head, poured hydrochloric acid into his head, and then he just leaves Conorak's drugged body next to this other guy's drugged body, and Hughes is dead, the other guy. But
Yeah,
Conorak is just drugged, and he just leaves him there, and he's like, I'm gonna go out for a few hours. So
I guess he's waiting for the zombie hydrochloric acid.
I don't know, man.
Effect.
He was not thinking this day. At this point, I think that he's devolving.
Yeah,
Because that's what it seems like. He's just killed somebody, and then he's like, oh, I'm going to leave this dead corpse here and go get another person to kill. You're devolving at this point.
Yeah,
You're getting really messy. You're no longer an organized killer. Because he's pretty organized.
Yeah, he would like get rid of all the evidence. And
Exactly.
now he's just like, here's a body, let me go get another one.
Yeah. So the next morning, he came home early. He found Conorak sitting outside of his apartment, very groggy and out of it. 3 women are huddled around him. And Dahmer started telling the women Conorak was his friend. And he attempted to lead him back up to his apartment, and the women were like, no, sir. We called the police.
Women saved the day.
Yes! So the police showed up, and Dahmer eventually convinced them that Conorak was his 19-year-old boyfriend. So he convinced the police that a 14-year-old boy was a 19-year-old boy who was also his boyfriend. And he told them that they had fought after drinking too much, and the women were not happy with this explanation. They were like, no, I don't believe you. But the police were like, go back to your sewing. I'm gonna take these men back upstairs. So Dahmer escorted them back upstairs to his apartment with Conorak. And he showed them the Polaroids that he had took of Conorak earlier. Yeah.
Why would he? Oh, weird.
Because he was showing it to them as proof of their relationship. Because they were nude photos, but Conorak was drugged up and not even, like, awake in them.
Yeah, so if you're like, look, we are in a relationship.
Exactly.
Pictures he'd let me take of him.
And the police just deemed it as a domestic dispute. They were like, cool. So the three officers were in this man's apartment.
With another dead person.
Hughes was dead on the floor.
Yeah, because he's not dismembered or anything.
No.
He's just hanging out.
So, officers left, and they noted later that they smelled a strange odor. There's a dead body on that floor, and all you noted was a strange odor? Okay.
Well, like, hydrochloric acid, not to be super gross, but that's like your stomach acid.
Yeah, I don't get it.
So, like, I feel like that's a very familiar smell.
Yeah.
Because everyone's experienced their insides becoming outside in that side.
Yes.
So
Dahmer drilled Conorak's head again and injected acid into it, and this time he died. Crazy coincidence. Conorak was the younger brother of the boy Dahmer had molested in 1988, a crime that he was actually convicted for. And according to Dahmer, he had no idea of their connection. And he dismembered Hughes and Conorak's body, and Dahmer kept both their skulls. Here's my thing. If the police would have done any sort of work there, they would have found that out.
that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, if he had been convicted of a crime with the same last name of this guy,
they would have known.
it would have been like a pretty red flag.
It would have been, So, I don't know. Crazy to me.
They were like, ooh, gay naked photos.
That's exactly
I'm
what
out.
it was. They were like, ooh, gay stuff. No thanks.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It's sad that that's how that turned out. So, June 1991, Dahmer lures another victim with the promise of a photo shoot. 20-year-old Matthew Turner. He met Dahmer in Chicago and persuaded him to travel to Milwaukee for a photo shoot.
Huh.
Once again, Dahmer drugged, strangled, and dismembered him, and he kept his head and internal organs in a plastic bag in the freezer. He's going to eat them.
Oh.
And then between July 7th and the 19th of 1991, 3 more victims are killed. So that's why I said he was definitely
Like, he
on
had
a downside
peaked.
here. Yes.
We've passed.
Exactly. So he's on a downward spiral. This time, he chose another victim from Chicago. Dahmer promised Jeremiah Weinberger, 20, a weekend away at his apartment in Milwaukee. Dahmer didn't murder him until the day after he arrived, so he spent like a whole day with Weinberger.
Just hanging out.
Yes, but then he started talking about leaving. So a couple days later, after agreeing, so that's when he killed Weinberger. Sorry, I skipped over that. But he talked about leaving and Dahmer killed him. A couple days later, after agreeing to pose for nude photos, a 24-year-old Oliver Lacey went back to Dahmer's apartment as well. He was drugged and then chloroformed throughout the day to keep him alive but unconscious, because Dahmer wanted to be with someone but have them have no control. He wanted them completely submissive. So then he strangled Lacey, he had sex with his corpse, and then he stored his head and heart in the refrigerator and the skeleton in the freezer.
The skeleton.
The whole skeleton.
I wonder if he like had little Ziploc bags with like the labels, and he like is sharpening.
He labeled them. I don't think they came out with those until later on.
Probably. You're. I bet you're 100%.
But I see where your head's at.
Yeah. Like how did it? Like in the freezer.
Did he organize them?
Yeah. Like I can't tell a pork chop from like a chicken breast if they're both in the freezer bag and they're kind of like been in there for a minute. It's hard to tell. Like obviously you can, but if you have all these organ meat and all these like skeletons and stuff, like what are you gonna do? How do you know?
Yeah. So 4 days after murdering Lacey, Dahmer was fired from his job. And you know what? Thank goodness. About time. You're telling me he was murdering all these people this whole time and he still had a job?
Yeah, and he like had remains in his locker.
Yeah, he had a penis in his locker in a box. And nobody knew. A rotting penis at this point for sure. Or no, I guess he preserved them, didn't he? He did. He preserved them. That's why it didn't smell. Anyway, the same day that he got fired, he was like, I don't have a job anymore. I might as well go kill someone.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, upper.
Yeah.
It's depressing.
Yeah. So instead of like eating his sorrows away like I would.
As we're doing.
I'm not sad. I've had a great weekend. This has been like the best weekend I've had since I moved to Charleston. So it really has. So, anyway, back to the story. 4 days after murdering Lacey, Dahmer was fired from his job. The same day, Dahmer lured Joseph Bradhoff, 25, to his apartment. He strangled him and then laid his body on the bed, where he left it for 2 days before placing Bradhoff's head in the freezer.
I wonder how big his bed was. Like if it was.
So I'm gonna post a picture. I'm gonna post a lot of pictures on the Instagram, but one of the pictures I'm gonna put on the Instagram is the bed where he killed these people, and where he posed their bodies and like cut their heads off and stuff. And there's just a huge blood stain on the wall.
Oh.
Yeah. So I can't imagine he took anyone into that room, because red flag. Let me tell you. If you walk into a man's bedroom and there's blood on his wall where his headboard should be, red flag. Don't sleep with that man.
Yeah, I was just thinking like my thought process is the body was on the bed and he had like a full size bed. Where was Dahmer sleeping?
Yeah, so the bed does look kind of small. If I'm being honest, you could definitely fit another person on there, I'm sure. But I don't think Dahmer cared about any of that. I mean, his apartment smelled rancid.
I'm sure.
So he didn't care about any of that. So July 22nd, 1991, Dahmer's killing spree comes to an end.
Oh.
So, 2 Milwaukee police officers were flagged down by Tracy Edwards, 32. He was handcuffed, and they were dangling from his wrists. He told the officers a freak had placed the handcuffs on him, and he had spent the better part of his night trying to get these off and trying to escape this man's apartment where he was being held captive.
Okay, well, he was successful, I guess.
Yes, he was more successful than anyone else.
Yeah.
So, this is why. Dahmer had met Edwards earlier that day, and he had convinced him to come back to his apartment. And Edwards told the police that he had invited him back to his apartment for beer and to watch The Exorcist.
Okay.
And I'd be totally down for The Exorcist, not the beer, but The Exorcist would be super fun. Edwards immediately noticed a foul smell. About time. Let's talk about red flags. If a man brings me to his apartment and it smells foul, I don't want to be there anyway, but also foul and dead body foul? That's like a major red flag. You have to know.
I have a science thing if you want to hear it, but I don't want to interrupt your Jeffrey Dahmer.
What is the science thing?
It's about, they did a study on women are more likely to have sexual intercourse with a man if they're afraid and fearful.
Oh, yes, I actually know this.
Okay, so
because I went to school for social work, so I had to do a study on sexual trauma.
Yeah.
And they did a study. You're exactly right. They did a study where they did like a test of like if a woman was comfortable and felt safe around a man, she would be more likely to say no if she didn't want to have sex with him compared to if she felt in danger or fear towards him. Especially women who have experienced trauma, it's a lot harder for them to say no. So in the fear, they will just let it happen.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay, so mine was a different study, but that's awesome. Like,
Well,
so,
not awesome, but I know what you're saying.
yeah. So like they were comparing fear versus disgust, and as a woman to male sexual relationship, the woman being the test subject, she was more likely to have sex with someone who she was fearful of than someone that she was disgusted by.
Okay, so mine went to a completely different place.
Yeah, so
that's
kind
good
of
now.
It was like still like a really good study, but it was more like self-preservation, like you're gonna die back in yonder day if you had sex with someone and you got like infections. Versus that, so like human nature to be like, this is gross, I'm actively choosing not to engage sexually with you is like a human nature thing if he felt disgusted. Yeah. So
Edwards immediately noticed the foul smell and stacked boxes of hydrochloric acid. About time someone noticed that too. I'm telling you people, if you see a blue barrel in somebody's apartment, it's hydrochloric acid and there's a body in there. Okay, Edwards became alarmed because he thought that his beer had been drugged. It had. So Dahmer tried to handcuff Edwards, but he only got one wrist. And then Dahmer rested his head on Edwards' chest and started reciting the movie, The Exorcist, and he threatened to murder him and eat his heart. Totally normal. I've definitely been through that. I'm kidding.
I can't say that I have, but, close calls.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Edwards kept telling Dahmer that he was his friend, and he was waiting for the perfect moment to escape. So he was like, no, dude, we're good. We're friends. Like, we're just going to have a good time. You don't have to do this stuff. And Dahmer's, like, kind of getting in his head now, right? So Edwards punches him in the face, and in the confusion, Edwards runs for the door and eventually flags down that police car. Upon their arrival, the police's arrival to Dahmer's apartment, Dahmer invited him in. He was like, come on in. And he admitted that he had placed the handcuffs on Edwards. And he was like, yeah, the key's in my nightstand. Dahmer wanted to get caught. You can't convince me he didn't because of all of this. He told them the key's on my nightstand, so they entered. One of them stayed in the living room, the other went into his bedroom. And the officer noticed a partially open drawer filled with Polaroid pictures of numerous bodies in different states of dismemberment. So I'm not going to post these on Instagram because I just made the Instagram and it would definitely get taken down because they're very graphic. But I am going to post a link to the Polaroid photos that they have online from the Milwaukee Police Department. So I'm going to let you know what the link is for, and I'll post the link, and you can go look at them yourself. I will say they're very disturbing. They're also really cool. They're also really gross. One of them is like a picture of a body where an entire rib cage is out.
Ooh.
Yes, you definitely don't want to see them, DJ.
So
but
maybe
for anyone who does, who's like super into that grody, like gory, dark, and decrepit stuff, I'm going to post the link so you can look at it. But again, proceed with caution because that is some messed up stuff.
Just plan like a Nickelodeon binge watching session.
Yeah, right after so that you don't have nightmares.
I used to do that when I watched scary movies. I would watch them during the day and then watch a couple of like funny cartoon shows afterwards to like balance my brain out. Yeah. So the officer grabbed the pictures from the drawer and he goes to the living room and he says to his partner, "These are for real." Like he can just tell he's looking at them and he's like, "These are real." Yeah, they're Polaroids.
And he sees the images and Dahmer tried to run. He tried to go for the door, but he was quickly subdued by those officers, and they immediately called for assistance. When the authorities opened Dahmer's refrigerator door, they start searching everything. They opened his refrigerator door. They found the severed head of a black male on the bottom shelf. They would later discover 4 other severed heads in Dahmer's kitchen, 2 human hearts in the refrigerator, and 7 skulls in Dahmer's bedroom, as well as an entire human torso in the freezer, the skeleton that he froze. Yeah. Further investigation of the apartment revealed preserved sexual organs, the penis. He had to take it out of his work locker.
Because he got fired.
2 entire skeletons, severed hands, and 3 torsos submerged in acid.
interesting that they were
Yes.
still, like, there, but I don't know what kind of acid.
So I'm also going to post a picture from the crime scene that they had of a picture that Dahmer drew of an altar he wanted to make, where he wanted to display the skulls of the victims and numerous other things that he had kept of them. So he drew like a picture, and it looks like, I mean, I have no artistic ability in terms of drawing, so it looks like something I would draw if I was trying to show somebody, like, hey, I want to, like, it's like when Tyler from work, like, makes me stuff. I'm like, here, I drew this really, really bad picture of something that I want you to make me, and he's, like, super supportive and, like, yeah, it's great. And I'm like, no, but you can make it into something great. It's literally like that.
It's like a rough draft.
It is like a rough draft, but it's so bad, and it just reminds me of my own drawings.
So no hate on you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, so no hate on
We
your
can't
drawing
draw
abilities,
either.
Jeffrey. But it was not good. So now we get to his trial. So Dahmer was arrested on July 22nd, 1991. He pleaded guilty but insane to 15 of the 17 murders he confessed to. In February 1992, the jury ruled that he was sane and he was guilty of 15 murders. Jeffrey was convicted of the 15 murders and sentenced to 15 consecutive life sentences. Prison officials determined that since Jeffrey's case was so well known, it would be best if he was kept in isolation from the other inmates for his safety. However, after a year of good behavior, Jeffrey asked to be able to join in the communal activities with the other inmates. He went to classes, he ate with the other inmates, he was given work duties. He was, like, all in all, like, a pristine prisoner, which a lot of these serial killers are. You'll, like, come to learn that. So Jeffrey was even sent religious material from his father, and he began to study the Bible, and he even got baptized in prison.
What a concept.
This man found Jesus a little too late, but he did. As well-behaved as Dahmer seemed to be, he still had urges, and he loved to antagonize people. So Dahmer would make morbid jokes. He would advertise, he would make signs advertising having a Cannibals Anonymous group started. Obviously, people did not like that. They did not think it was funny, but he thought it was great. He took food that he was given, and he would make fake body parts out of it, and then he would chop it up and eat it.
Like a kid playing with his chicken nuggets.
Yes, like, instead of, like, dino chicken nuggets, this man was like, I want human chicken nuggets. So one time, an inmate made an attempt on Jeffrey's throat. He tried to slash it with a blade, but the blade was too dull, and it broke.
Oh.
So Jeffrey was left with a scratch, and he was put into solitary confinement, but for his own protection. But it was just a minor attack, so he got out of solitary, and they were like, hey, you're allowed to go back into general population, and he wanted to. I think he wanted to die. So while serving his sentence at Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin, he was beaten to death by another inmate, Christopher Scarver, while he was performing his cleaning duties in the gymnasium bathroom. Do you want to know what he was beaten to death with?
I do want to know.
It is so karma, what goes around comes around. It was a 10-pound dumbbell. He killed Stephen Hicks with a 10-pound dumbbell.
Yeah, he did.
And Christopher Scarver, I mean, I know he was a prisoner. I don't know what he did, but he killed him with a 10-pound dumbbell, beat him to death with it. Like, how crazy is that?
What a concept.
I know. I'm like, all right. After Jeffrey's sentencing, he stated, I never wanted freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself.
Oh.
Which, again, leads me to believe that that's why he wanted to be a part of that general population. He wanted to die. He was done doing what he wanted to do. He was over it. He had no joy left.
Yeah, and also, like, if you've killed so many people...
It's tiring, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure it's...
And I don't feel bad for him. Like, I'm not like, oh, he was so tired, he just needed a break. Like, he was tired, though, I'm sure. He was exhausted. And, I mean, Jeffrey said, too, I do feel bad for him in this aspect only, is, like, he just wanted, he wanted so badly to have a relationship where he was close to somebody and somebody wouldn't leave, but his brain was messed up. I mean, he didn't process things the same way that we do. He didn't think about things the same way we do. So, like, somebody who wants, like, a stable, healthy relationship and knows that they're actually capable of that, he wasn't capable of it. And that's so unfortunate. And I don't know that for somebody like Jeffrey, where your brain is messed up like that, that there ever is help you can get. It's not like you can just go to therapy and things will get better.
Yeah, because it's, like, I guess, like, a wiring issue now.
Yeah, so, I don't know. It's hard to, like, I'm not sympathizing with a serial killer, and I don't sympathize with any of them. Like, I like, preach it all the time. You can have the roughest upbringing, and you still turn out okay. It's all about choices.
Yeah.
Like, there are, genetics, and there is environment, and I, more than anyone, totally get that.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where you just choose to be a certain person, and you don't have to choose to be a bad person. You don't have to choose to do these bad things. And I do get it. There's a lot of serial killers, and we'll talk about them, and they've just, like, they were just doomed, like, in terms of, like, life. But you know what? I've been told, like, all the time that, like, I was, like, just supposed to be a serial killer. From, like, everything that I went through, people were like, you should have been a serial killer, because you were just so fun.
Yeah, you had, like, the perfect upbringing.
The perfect upbringing for it. Like, it was like, I was, like, molded to be that, and, like, but no, like, you choose to be better and to do things better and to be a better person and to take those experiences and do something better with them. You don't have to be this bad person or give in to the things that you went through. It just doesn't have to be like that. So I hate that excuse of bad things happen to me, so now I get to do bad things to other people.
Yeah, because I think bad things happen to everybody. And I think, I read a quote that was like, the sign of intelligence is ultimately being nice to someone, because you understand that everyone's going through their things, and you can emotionally, maturely, like, go out of yourself, understand that you're having this, but you don't need to inflict how you're feeling on other people, project that on other people, and treat people with kindness. So kindness is a sense of intelligence.
Yeah, I think so too, for sure.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey died at age 34, and
Life.
Fun fact, he didn't eat tattooed people, so your girl would have been good.
And I did.
Also because I was a girl.
Yeah, you're not.
So I wasn't a target pool anyway. I also want to point out that, again, I'm not saying that this makes him a good person by any means, but they would have never known that he killed Stephen Hicks unless he confessed to it. They had no proof of it. They had no suspicion of it. He just told them that he did it.
Oh.
Because remember, there was a 9-year gap.
Yeah.
So there was absolutely no way they would have known that unless he told them, and he did.
Yeah, and then his body was in like a one piece.
Yeah, exactly. So that was nice that Stephen Hicks' family got closure that they would have never known, because they just thought their son was missing all this time. I mean, remember, he went to a rock concert and then never went home. There's no reason not to believe that he just went missing, or, back then just left.
Yeah, like, found some groupies and, like, started touring and stuff, and I guess back in the day, cell phones weren't really a thing at that time, so they couldn't, like, life check, what is that, the app, the Life Alert or something?
Life 360?
Life 360, yeah. They couldn't, like, Life 360 him and see where he was at, make sure he wasn't dead. So, yeah, they could have assumed that he went and toured and found some homie G's and went going.
Dude, that cheese slaps.
It is very good cheese.
It's so good.
We have 4 different cheeses, and 2 of them are spicy, and I'm here for it.
Anyway, that was Jeffrey Dahmer. I hope you enjoyed the humor, me eating crackers, me being dumb, not knowing words because I'm bad at them.
English is hard.
I promise the next one will be better. Or it won't.
I think this was a very good success in the sense of, like...
Yeah.
You told a story, his story from start to end.
There was probably too much talking for people's liking, but you know what? I'm okay with it. So anyway,
podcast 8 hours.
Please join me next week for another podcast with The Dark and Decrepit. Okay, bye.
Bye.